Hey, welcome Broken World Entertainment, and thanks to a poll I put out, you beautiful people decided you wanted me to review Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, episode by episode. You didn't even want it just to be the full season, you wanted episode by episode. However, they've dropped not one but two episodes to kick off Season 3, and we're going to talk about them. And they couldn't be any more different from one another. One is very pew pew, shooty shooty, bang bang, and the other one is meant to be a full-on comedy almost. So obviously we'll start with episode 1, which of course picks up from where season 2 left off, way back 2.5 years ago, which was with the Gorn. And they've made so many changes to the Gorn, it's unbelievable. And of course, if you remember, they've basically made the Gorn xenomorphs. They even started to look like xenomorphs. They've big long tails. They use the tails now to attack as well. And of course, they gestate from people. I believe from your back, but whatever. So this episode, the first episode I should say, you wouldn't want to be suffering from motion sickness or anything like that, because this thing kicks off with the camera spinning upside down and all around the place. Then it's just shaky, and then it's doing more spinny around and stuff. The whole episode is like that. Really, good God. They also come up with dumb solutions to problems. Now, one of the things is the Enterprise is sitting there and it's getting shot at by all these Gorn ships. There's little Gorn ships that are all coming from this gigantic Gorn ship. Half of the colonists that were on the planet in the last season, and some of the crew of the Enterprise have been captured by the Gorn, are on that big ship. But the little ones are shooting the Enterprise, and everything's like, it's shaking when it's getting hit, you know, the vibrations are there, the sparks are flying, all of this, until they decide, yeah, you don't actually need that to happen, because when they fly towards the big ship, and the big ship starts shooting, they seem to forget that when the impacts cause actual impact, because they're taking it in their stride, really. But they have to retreat in order to try and regroup and go back after the hostages. What's their plan, though? Well, they want to stick basically a tracking beacon onto the Gorn ship. But wait, how are they going to do that? The shields are up. How do you think they do it, people? What do you think it is that they go, this is how we're going to get a beacon, a homing beacon, onto the ship, the Gorn ship? Yeah, they're going to fire a torpedo that's going to be a dummy one that's obviously going to attach to the hull of the ship so they can track it. But how are they going to do that if the shields are up? Well, no, they're not going to shoot the shields to try and weaken a spot in it, because they've been doing that and to no effect. Their plan, and I kid you not, is to ram the Enterprise into the Gorn ship. Don't ask me how, but that doesn't destroy either ship, so that's exactly what they do. They ram the Enterprise into the Gorn ship, which starts destroying parts of it. Enterprise is fine, and they just fire torpedoes, stick it to it, and then bugger off. And it's like, wow, that's weird. How the hell? That's like the most ridiculous way. Spock and Nurse Chapel. This is ridiculous. What they do here is mind-blowing. So Pike's girlfriend, whatever her name is, Captain something, I don't know what her name is, don't particularly care either, but she's infected with the Gorn, so she's basically a host. Every trial that Christine Chapel is running to see what they could do to try and stop these Gorns from hatching in her is failing. It keeps coming up 100% death. They're coming up with new plans. For some reason, they send Spock down to help her, even though he doesn't have medical experience, but whatever. They actually stop, and they even say this, like, time is of the essence, like, we're running out of time, these things are growing faster than we anticipated. They stop all of this moment to have a conversation about, hey, you know, are we breaking up or aren't we breaking up, and this stuff, and you're like, what the hell is going on? You've literally just told us this is a matter of time, and you've stopped this episode and what's happening here to have a conversation about, hey, Christine Chapel looks like she's breaking up with Spock, and he's borderline crying. And I'm not joking about that. You literally see the tears about to start streaming down his face. It's like, good God. But all their ideas for getting rid of the Gorn out of her fail until they don't, and then they're going to do an operation, and Spock stops it at the last second, decides, hey, we should actually try something else, and it's like, well, why didn't you try that before you got this far? They go back, they meet up with Starfleet, a bunch of ships. Robert April comes aboard the Enterprise. He's like, we can't go after them because we can't go into Gorn territory, that's an act of aggression. Pike is like, well, they're gonna keep expanding, and they're gonna expand, and they're like, well, officially you can't do it, but unofficially find out how to punch. While all this is happening, we're shown inside the Gorn ship, and this is where they make another weird change for the Gorn. Now the Gorn ships seem to be organic. Yeah, in fact, the reason they're taking hostages is they put them in these pods that are basically eating them alive to fuel the ship. Yeah. Except, what happens? Well, they find phasers and stuff. Why? Well, those tubes seem to expel anything it can't digest, and it just happens that everybody had their weapons on them. That was lucky, wasn't it? But what we end up with is Na'an, the Doctor, and Bega, Sam Kirk, and Erica, I believe is her name, the Helms person. And they're like, Na'an is constantly going through the flashbacks of her trauma from the Gorn, which we've already seen in the last season, so it's like, why are you still doing this? But their plan is to take one of the Gorn ships and bugger off out. It gets convoluted, stupid, convenient, and what ends up happening is Erica gets stabbed in the stomach by one of the Gorn's hands, which lifts her into the air. She walks it off. She's fine. Literally, she walks it off and is able to pilot a ship, and she's fine. And of course, the Enterprise does stop. They find them. They come. The Gorn are going to these binary stars, and they seem to vanish. Don't know where they go, but the Enterprise follows it, but doesn't seem to go anywhere. But the Gorn return, but it's an invasion force. They can't see the Enterprise because of a gizmo that Scotty set up. Oh, by the way, yes, Scotty is going to be a part of this now, but we find out basically how he becomes a drinker in the second episode, but we find out how he becomes the miracle worker in this, and it's a woman, basically. Of course it is. The character's been in it for the past season or so. I have no idea what the character's name is. I don't care. It's the woman who plays the ghost of Christmas Present in Scrooged. Her. She basically, Pike wants an answer of when he can get the gizmo working, and before he answers, she says, oh, it'll be done before we cross the border, no worries, and blah blah blah. And when Scotty's like, why would you just tell him that it won't be and stuff? That's basically, you're telling the captain what they need to hear, because he's a miracle worker. What does Scotty always do? How long will it take to fix that engine, Scotty? 4 hours, but you don't have 4, so I'll do it for you in 2, when it'll actually only take 2 hours. So you're getting the hint of where that comes from. Overall, the Gorn go on an invasion. They set up a signal that brings the Gorn back at them and puts them into hibernation. It's just ridiculous and retarded, and that's how that whole episode played out. And it ends with the Pike's girlfriend basically not having the Gorn removed, but Spock's plan, by the way, to stop them from coming out of her was to feed them while they were still in her. That if they have the food and the sustenance, they shouldn't need to come out, and it gives them more time to do whatever they need to do to get rid of them. Yay. And we're told that Christine Chapel is going on some thing for 3 months. So that's the first episode. The second episode is this comedy episode, and it destroys Spock even more than they've done before. By the way, if you enjoyed the singy dancey episode in season 2, well, brace yourselves for this one, folks, because you're going to get to watch Spock dance. And not just that you're going to get to watch Spock dance, you're going to get to watch him dance with Na'an to Jitterbug. I'm not kidding about that. So, the second episode picks up 3 months later. They're at a starbase getting repaired from their encounter with the Gorn. Christine Chapel's coming back on board, but she doesn't come alone. She brings her new boyfriend. But We see Spock getting excited. They don't know, and we as the crowd don't know. Well, the viewer don't know that she's going to have a boyfriend with her. And we literally watch Spock checking his hair. He's looking in the mirror. He's holding up his uniform. Then he's holding up another uniform that's the exact same, trying to choose which to wear. When he gets told, hey, Nurse Chapel's going to be coming back, he's smiling. He goes, we see him then practicing or learning dancing with Nhan, having a conversation. Once they contact him and say, hey Spock, you told us to inform you Christine's ready to transport on board, he's like filled with glee and joy, and he's running to the transporter room, beams aboard with this boyfriend. He gets all sulky about that, comes to a party they're having where we meet the basically antagonist of this episode. You're not told it's a Q, but it's got Q powers, and by the end you know it's a Q. Now it does the finger clicks and stuff, but it doesn't do the flashy stuff. It just bangs you from one side to the other. But what he does is basically grants Spock a wish. Spock pretty much says he wishes he was with Chapel and stuff, and the very next day they're meant to be getting married and stuff. The only person who realizes something has changed is Christine Chapel's actual boyfriend, who's this Irish doctor dude. It gets all crazy. Spock is able to remember that everything has changed by getting emotional and punching the guy. Yeah, kid you not. Then they're trying to convince the rest of the crew that, hey look, this isn't right, something's off here. And the Q basically threatens to destroy the ship and everyone on it and everything like that if they don't go through with the wedding for whatever reason. And during the wedding, Spock makes this big speech to Christine Chapel to make her very emotional because her mother's dead, and it's a speech that her mother gave, and it's her birthday, and Spock gets Christine to cry, and she realizes, hey, wait a minute, something's not right here. How do we realize it's a Q? Because this thing's green floaty cloud father comes down, and you find out that this guy you've been watching is meant to be actually be a child, but he's like thousands of years old. He's also played by the guy from, I recognize the actor all the time, I don't know what his name is. He's the guy from the Jumanji films, the ones with the rock and stuff. The guy who's the guide, who's like, welcome to Jumanji. That guy, it's him. The green cloud comes down, and he's like, oh, Dad, I don't want to go. And he's like, what are you doing here? And you realise the voice of the father is John DeLance, Q himself. So that is how you know and are shown it's a Q. But it's so stupid. And it's this comedy episode where Spock is trying Scotty at Spock's bachelor party, they're going to pour him a brandy, and he's like, oh, no, none for me. I'm not a drinker. I hardly touch the stuff. And of course, we know Scotty loves to drink. And they show us how Scotty becomes a drinker because he eats this Vulcan treat kind of thing. And we see him almost getting sick, and you see him grabbing the bottles. So obviously, that's where they're trying to show you, oh, that's where he started drinking and stuff. The episode goes nowhere. You meet Erica's brother, who has a thing for her. That's a nothing side story. Except they've done something now with this episode that is like, oh god, they just flipped the roles. So now Nhan is over her trauma of the Gorn that she grew up with, because when she was a kid she lost her brother and her family to the Gorn and stuff. She's over it now. Erica now has the trauma. She is now walking away from parties and going and punching things and seeing reflections of Gorn in the window, and it's like, oh sweet Jesus. By the way, did they actually get the Gorn out of Pike's girlfriend? Yes, apparently they did. They didn't tell us how. It was just like, oh yeah, remember that thing that was a massive issue in the first episode? Yeah, we just fixed it. Don't ask questions. It's like, oh, okay, fair enough. It's weird. It really was weird. There's really nothing else in that episode. It's just played as a joke, but they make Spock super emotional. He's smiling, he's almost crying again, he's getting angry. It's like, stop destroying this character. Sweet Jesus, will you please stop? And it's, yeah, and the fact that they're introducing Qs now into it as well, and they don't look like the Qs, but they're Qs. If you even look, you'll see that John DeLance, like go on IMDb and stuff, he is down in an episode of Strange New Worlds as Q. We don't see him, like we don't see John DeLance. He's just this green floaty cloud thing, but it's John DeLance's voice. So overall, the 2 first episodes of Strange New Worlds Season 3 are dog shit. I hated them. They were painful to get through. What made it worse is Paramount has goddamn ads on it now, and they're long ass ads, and they're not even promoting other crap on Paramount. They're standard ads you get on terrestrial television, like for washing up liquid and crap, and it's like, good God. And you can see a little clock in the corner telling you how long it is. They used to be like 30 seconds. Now it's like 118 seconds. And so it's like, you're making this longer than it needs to be. Overall, though, the first episode, very dark, very action. It's just shooty, shooty, bang, bang. Everything blown up. Shaky camera, spinny camera. Garbage. Second episode, bright, laughy, jokey, happy, smiley, fun. And yes, again, it ends with Erica seeing a reflection and getting fearful and stuff, seeing a reflection of a Gorn. But just before that, the party she walks out of is where we see the crew and all these aliens dancing to Jitterbug by Wham, and we're seeing Spock dancing with Nhan to Jitterbug. I kid you not. So, 2 down. I'm not sure how many more to go. I think there's 10 episodes in this season, so, oh God, 8 more. We'll see. So, with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe. You better subscribe. You people are the ones that are making me watch this. So, please hit that sub button. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.